But we do know that those that have a stronger grip strength live longer than those that don't. And so that in and of itself is enough motivation to think, okay, I want to be good at this, right? If I had to pick one of these exercises out of all the ones that we've covered and will cover, it would be this one. This one is massive. It is so very, very important for that longevity, which is one of the main things that we promote here at East West.
All of these exercises play some role in our activities of daily living. If you're thinking of bending down and picking something up, more times than not, you're going to be lifting with your back or bending over and rounding those shoulders rather than going into this squat movement, which is really important just to protect ourselves from injuries.
Aging is the pursuit of comfort and trying to be as comfortable as possible all the time. Whereas those that we, quote unquote, age more slowly are not only doing things that, help their health, but also challenging themselves. And so I challenge all of you to next time you're sitting down, be mindful of how you're sitting down, but also be mindful of how you're standing up. Can I stand up, and can I repeat that process with no hands?
All right, welcome everybody to the Health Accelerator Challenges. This is your host tonight, Cade Archibald, and I'm really excited about today's show. We got some special guests on. We're going to be diving in even further into some fitness and your Fitness 50 benchmarks. I'm really excited to see this and excited to introduce our two special guests. One was on last week, and last week we talked about protein. We talked about macros for the most part, and specifically the challenge last week was to see how many days you could accomplish getting at least 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per day per body weight, and per your goal body weight. And so type into the chat box if you're joining us live. Send me an email if you're listening to this recording and you're like, Cade, I crushed it this week. I hit my goal every single day. I've been actually super intentional. So since Trysten did that training last week, I even at like our lunch on Thursday, I was like, all right, Trysten, how much chicken do I got? I got to get my grams in. So I've upped my game there. I'm mixing protein powder with my yogurt just to make sure I'm getting there.
Awesome.
So Trysten, you'd be proud.
Awesome.
So yeah, let us know how you're doing on your challenge. So I'm going to introduce our guest today, and I am really excited. So you guys are familiar and know Trysten Slagowski. He's our fitness expert, program advisor here at East West. And alongside Trysten today, we have Nikki Bott. She is a rock star fitness advisor here at East West as well. Some of you may know her. You've probably worked with her on some of your fitness programming and plans. And I'm excited. They're going to be presenting on the Fitness 50 benchmarks today. And they got a great show in store for us. So yeah, take it away, guys.
Awesome. Well, the point of today is, the whole theme is the Fitness 50 benchmarks, and we're super, super excited. We have a couple, infographics that we're going to share with you here. And first of all, we just want to let you know what the Fitness 50 is as a whole. A lot of you may have already seen it. And then we're going to kind of break down every single exercise and let you know the specifics of it. And her and I will kind of chat about each movement and what it is. Shout out to Nikki for putting all of these together. Every infographic you'll see on screen today, she's an absolute wizard with whatever software it is that she uses. And so, shout out to her. These look amazing. She's made everything very, very simple to understand. And yeah, we're just gonna dive right into it. We're gonna start with the Fitness 50 as a whole.
Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. We'll start with the Fit 50 as a whole. So the Fit 50 benchmarks were created by Reagan Archibald and Dan Sullivan as a simplified approach to longevity. It consists of 11 total different exercises, all with various aspects regarding to longevity and just living longer, moving better, and everything else that encompasses. There's 3 different levels that you can be in. That's fit fitter and fittest, and there's just various ways to progress into the different levels through the benchmarks.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, guys, is as we progress through this, make sure that if there's any questions that pop up, feel free to put them in the chat box. Feel free to put them in the Q&A. We're happy to answer any questions along the way. We know that we're kind of covering a lot here, so please feel free to answer, ask any questions that may come up here. Okay. So first one we're going to get started with is let's see.
Okay.
There we go. Push-ups. So push-ups, everyone's familiar with a push-up, right? We're all have, seen people that have, asked us to do push-ups. I mean, when we were in school, they for some reason were used as a punishment. The push-ups are, being able to perform 40 push-ups, it can reduce stroke, heart disease by 96%, which is massive, right? Now, 40 is a big number, so we're not asking you to be there right away, right? So we want you to be able to work up incrementally. And sometimes, you say, okay, what if I can't do one push-up? We've had many patients come in and work with Nikki or myself that have not been able to do one push-up. And after, dedication, time, and putting in the effort there, they're able to eventually get to a point where they're able to crank out, the minimum 15 push-ups, because even then you're still going to significantly reduce the amount of risk you have with heart disease, stroke. And another important thing I like to point out is that it's just a functional movement, right? We don't want to fall. None of us want to fall. It's something that we're always wanting to avoid, but simply being able to push your own body weight up is paramount in getting yourself up and not having to, call the fire department or things like that to come get you off of the floor should we fall. So not only is it great for strength and longevity, but it's also a massive functional movement as we age.
And one thing to note with the push-ups is that these can be modified. For a lot of females, it's a lot harder to do push-ups, especially with the goal of hitting 40 if you wanted to be in the fittest category. So with the push-ups, you can do these modified in a girl push-up, essentially, where you're on your knees. So that's one thing to note if you do test on the push-ups going forward.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then moving on to the plank, this is the next exercise. This is a great core strengthening exercise, but it also increases your flexibility and endurance, and it's just a great movement to incorporate, especially for isolating that core. And again, the different benchmarks to hit would be 1 minute, 2 minutes, and 3 minutes, and this would just be an isometric hold. You can do this either on your elbows, or you can go into a high plank where you're pressed up on your hands. Either or work. I personally prefer going down on my elbows. I find it a lot more stable for my shoulder, so that's my preference anyways.
Yeah, and one thing, guys, we all want, it may not be your goal specifically, but people tell me I want abs, right? That's a fitness goal we get all the time. I want to see my abs. This specific exercise is not one that's going to give you that six-pack, right? But that's not necessarily always the goal. Everybody has what we call that rectus abdominis muscle, the six-pack muscle. It's just a matter of body composition, whether or not it's visible. So just because someone has, and I know a lot of people even has a six-pack, does not mean that they're functionally strong in their core. There are many individuals that appear to look like they are strong, but a six-pack or, the visible abs is not indicative of a strong core whatsoever. And so having this, what we call isometric or without movement, strength, stability is massive for not only longevity, but it's also for back pain, right? We think of the core oftentimes as just the front, as the abs, right? As the stomach muscles. We're cylindrical beings. We oftentimes forget that our low back is just as much as part of our core as the front part of our body. And so this, when done consistently, like with any exercise, and eventually to that 3-minute benchmark, can really help alleviate a lot of back pain as well.
Awesome. And then moving on to the dead hang. So the dead hang is a great exercise for not only grip strength, but for shoulder stabilization, posture, just engaging those back muscles to hold you up. And the dead hang has 2 different variations. There's a passive dead hang, which is where you're essentially letting gravity take over. But for this benchmark, we want to be engaging in more of an active dead hang, where we're engaging those shoulders down and back, engaging our core, especially to stabilize us, to help us preventing that swinging motion that might occur during the dead hang. And for males, the benchmark to hit is right around 2 minutes, but for the Fit 50, obviously fittest would be 90 seconds, and just in general, females should be able to hit 90 seconds as well. That's that optimal range. So essentially, everyone who engages in a dead hang should hit that 90-second range or shoot for that. And obviously, this is something that you can build on and increase your ability and duration that you're able to hang for. There's several different exercises that are great to increase your dead hang time. This could come from deadlifts, This could come from exercises such as a farmer's carry or a suitcase carry, where you're really testing your grip strength and having to hold on to a dumbbell for an extended amount of time, but also engage your core during those exercises, all of which is going to help you with your dead hang and improving that. And with a lot of our patients, we're always having them engage in dead hangs or some sort of carry, just to really test the grip strength and core strength and just continually build on that, because it's really, really important for longevity.
Well said. Well said. I mean, the really only thing that I could add to that is we know that there's a direct correlation between grip strength and living longer, right? And there's a lot of, back and forth in, the science community, as there is with anything, as to why that is. But we do know that those that have a stronger grip strength live longer than those that don't. And so that in and of itself is enough motivation to think, okay, I want to be good at this, right? If I had to pick one of these exercises out of all the ones that we've covered and will cover, it would be this one. This one is massive. It is so very, very important for that longevity, which is one of the main things that we promote here at East West. Linda, I know you're probably on these calls a lot. Shout out to you and what you've been able to do and work with Nikki specifically on the dead hang. That dead hang has continued to climb. I think that she's almost at 90 seconds herself. And she started, probably at the 10-second mark and has just made progress every single time. So Linda, absolutely shout out to you. You deserve all that recognition, and we would love to help anybody else that's wanting to increase or even learn how to do this movement here.
Yeah, I was just about to shout out Linda when Trysten stopped talking for a second, but Linda is an absolute rock star. She did start at not even being able to really hang up there. She was just kind of slipping off and not being able to hold herself up, engage those muscles, and progressively through the weeks and just months of working on this dead hang, she's gone from like 3 seconds, and her PR right now is 1:25. Each day we work on it, that she comes in here, and each day she improves. And it's just really exciting to see someone be able to improve and just the progress that they're able to make. And that's why these benchmarks are really important, right? You start somewhere, you get a baseline measure by testing all of these, and then from there you can track your progress. It's a great tool to use just as you're training.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
all right, squat, you guys. So this one is something that is even oftentimes seen with a negative connotation, right? And oftentimes when you get hurt, it's because you were doing something like this, or maybe we weren't doing it efficiently. So the squat is massively important, and more importantly, it's one of the 7 functional movement patterns, right? And we've covered those in the past. If anybody's curious to what those are, I'm sure they'll be covered in the future. But reach out to me or Nikki, and I'd be happy. We'd be happy to go over those. But the squat is one of the 7 functional movement patterns, and something that we as human beings are designed to do, right? It does not always have to be associated with injury or hurting your low back. People often think I have to have a large amount of weight on my back or in front of me, and that's not the case at all. We squat every single day and get into what we call hip flexion whenever we sit down. And being able to simply sit down and stand up without our hands is a massive marker of longevity and therefore, mortality.
And one thing to note with this, like Trysten brought up activities of daily living, all of these exercises play some role in our activities of daily living. If you're thinking of bending down and picking something up, more times than not, you're going to be lifting with your back or bending over and rounding those shoulders rather than going into this squat movement, which is really important just to protect ourselves from injury. So knowing how to properly do a squat, be able to do it multiple times in a row, with the fittest category being 40 in a row. I think it's within 50 seconds. There is a time limit on this. Just better prepares you for your activities of daily living and really protecting yourself from injury.
Absolutely. And being able to understand that it's okay that we're not able to get to what we call parallel, right? You oftentimes hear people when they go to the gym or they work with certain trainers, it's that squat didn't count because you didn't get to a certain depth. We hear, and Nikki and I share this belief that if you're not able to get to that depth, you own your range of motion. We call it owning it, right? And you want to be able to own the range of motion you have with the intent of getting better. And so we're totally fine with, starting with a box or starting you elevated, right? The lower the chair is, or the lower we tend to go, the more challenging the squat seems to be. And so we're able to work with you and start you where you're starting, meet you where you're starting, and then eventually get you to the point where you want to be and where we want to see you.
Absolutely. And then very similar to the squats, we have the wall sit, where essentially we're going into an isometric hold with our backs up against the wall as some sort of support. And what this really does is it helps us build that lower body strength, lower body stability, and just provides us with a great way to target those quads, those hamstrings, those different various muscles in our lower body to help us do the activities of daily living.
Absolutely. Nikki, so we just did the squats and we now have the wall sit. What would you say the main difference is? Because to me, it kind of looks like they're the same picture on here. What would you say the main difference is?
So the main difference is that you're essentially bracing yourself against a wall, whereas a squat, you would do it with nothing around you, touching nothing, not using anything for support. So you can really play off the wall and push some of your weight into the wall, essentially to help you kind of balance and translate that load into the lower body and keep yourself elevated.
Awesome. Awesome. Would you say that this is also like, like with the plank, we're building isometric strength here as well, as opposed to the dynamic strength maybe we would see in the squat?
Absolutely, I would say that.
Cool. Cool. So yeah, so guys, this looks very similar to the squat, right? The position is very similar, but we're focusing on two different things here. We have dynamic strength and functional movement in the squat, where we're building stability, like Nikki said, and isometric strength in the wall sit. So both of them, while they look very similar, serve their individual purposes and are both very, very important.
Absolutely. And the next one is lunges, which again is very similar. We're still focusing on the lower body, specifically that posterior chain, those muscles in the back side of your legs, back, and your butt. So essentially your hamstrings, glutes, and low back. And what this can be, you can do these walking, you can do them stationary, whatever works for you, but essentially we're just getting into that forward motion or that reverse motion and really targeting the lower body.
Absolutely. So this is another one of the 7 functional movement patterns, being the single leg, right? And so ladies, if you ever want to blow your husband out of the water or a male out of the water, this is one of the main opportunities you have. As females, you tend to have a wider center of gravity than males. I have gone into the gym and seen time and time again females, because of their anatomy and the way that their skeleton is structured, able to use this single leg pattern way more efficiently and move way more weight than males, because of the way that our skeleton, we tend to be more narrow at the hips. And so this is a great way to not only show off, but it's also very functional, because think about how we walk. No, we're not necessarily walking with a lunge every single time, but we are what we call bipedal creatures. We move on 2 feet in tandem, right? We're one step in front of the other. Oftentimes, as we age, we do what was called the shuffle, right? We shuffle our feet, and oftentimes, elderly individuals are taught this because they're trying to avoid tripping, when in reality, it just increases your chance of tripping. And so being able to move in this single leg movement pattern is super important for that longevity and correcting the overall balance as well, because we spend split seconds every single time we take a step on one leg, and being able to remain balanced is key as we age.
And I just want to touch back on something Trysten mentioned. He did say that I would be better at this exercise. So I want everyone to hear that and hear him say that I would be better.
She already is better at it. She already is better at it. There's no argument there whatsoever. She can absolutely outlunge me. That's never been my strong suit.
Okay, and then again, here we go. Still lower body, so sit to stand. This is essentially the squat, but with a chair placed behind us. It provides a little bit more support, makes you feel like you're a little bit safer, more comfortable. But the key with these sit to stands is we're doing that squat motion, but we're not sitting fully back into the chair. Essentially, we're thinking rather tapping our butt onto the chair and then going back up, just going that faster motion rather than plopping and sitting back down into the chair.
Absolutely. So guys, again, this looks very similar, right? It looks, oh, why I'm doing a wall sit, I'm doing a squat. Why am I doing this? So I want you guys to think to yourselves, how often am I sitting in a chair and then using my hands to get up? I know I've probably done it today 2 or 3 times. Nikki's probably done it. We need to focus and be able to stand up without using our hands, because that requires more activation of not only the posterior chain, but the core. So that tap that Nikki mentioned before is very, very important. I see this all the time where people will come down and they give me almost a full-blown reset, right? You sit into a chair, you sit back, you relax, and then you stand up again. That tap at the bottom is what keeps things active, right? You don't have the ability to take a rest in between. And so that tap is super, super important, to not using your hands, because as we get older, we just are tempted to stand up using our hands. And I really believe in the term, aging is the pursuit of comfort and trying to be as comfortable as possible all the time. Whereas those that we, quote unquote, age more slowly are not only doing things that, help their health, but also challenging themselves. And so I challenge all of you to, next time you're sitting down, be mindful of how you're sitting down, but also be mindful of how you're standing up. Can I stand up, and can I repeat that process with no hands?
And as many of you know, if you worked with me or Trysten, we typically will start with this as kind of a warm up just to get us warm, get us started, activate those lower body muscles, but also because it's really essential. You are sitting and standing several times throughout the day. Anytime you move, essentially, you are standing up from a seated position. So it's really important to incorporate this exercise or even squats within your current routine, just so you can continue to build that lower body strength.
Absolutely. Now, sit to rise. This one is probably, I would say, the most challenging exercise on the list of everything that we've covered, even more so than the dead hang. I love the dead hang. It is very hard, but just pure strength and coordination, this is absolutely, in my opinion, one of the hardest. Really, what it comes down to is being able to stand up from the floor then without using your hands. So you think about the sit to stand as the step one. This is the big brother of that exercise. We're taking the chair away completely, right? We're going to ask you to sit crisscross on the ground and then stand up without using your hands. Now, one thing that's really cool about this is, yes, it does require strength, but it's also really good for coordination, right? It requires coordination and those neural pathways, those motor neural pathways to work together. So think about exercise in a lot of ways and learning exercise and coordination as almost like cognitively stimulating because it's a puzzle, right? Your brain is trying to figure out, okay, I'm in this position. How do I get myself out of this position? Because now you know the rules. So yes, it's good for the skeletal system, good for balance, but it's really good for coordination, which is great for longevity, but also to keep the mind active. And if any of you want, to see this demonstrated, I'd be happy to demonstrate. It took me a while to learn myself. But again, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I myself cannot do.
So Trysten, quick question on this. What tips or tricks would you have to successfully complete this? Because me and one of my patients were working on it. I think last week we were working on the sit to rise because we've been testing on the Fit 50 benchmarks, and we're really having a trouble getting up off the floor. How could we?
So first foundation is strength, right? We need to have strength, which it sounds like your patient does have strength. Now, the tip that I would use is trust. Trust yourself and trust the strength that you've developed, right? Do this in a controlled environment, do this in a safe environment, do it under the supervision of Nikki or myself or a trainer. But trust yourself because it requires forward momentum. It requires you to come forward, which when you think about it, when we stand up from a chair, whatever it may be, we actually need forward momentum. We use forward momentum to stand up. And so this specific movement, especially when we're coming from that crisscross position on the floor, requires us to throw the momentum forward as our legs rise. And once you're able to, again, coordinate those two things together, it's actually a lot easier than what it might look.
Would you say there's any ways in which you could practice this kind of in a cheating way just to build the ability to do this?
Absolutely. One of my favorite ways to do this is to simply get two dowels, right? Or two pieces of dowels work best over PVC, but have two stable areas. You can even hang on to something as you come up and simply practice the forward momentum components while you have something safe and stable in front of you, right? And so, for example, you get two dowels, you're sitting in the crisscross position. Use those to stand up. You can take the strength component out of it by using those to brace on and focus on the forward momentum component and then break things into parts. Forward momentum, then the strength, and then work on bringing them together.
Perfect. Well said.
Single leg balance. So this one, guys, this one may seem easy, right? And a lot of you guys, no matter your fitness level, may even be able to do the fittest right off the bat. And that's amazing. We want that. Single leg balance, again, goes back to that single leg movement pattern. We as humans spend micro amounts of time, unless we're doing this exercise, on one leg. And being able to balance on one leg is a massive indicator of longevity and overall, mortality. And it's really good, again, for that coordination. We also know that it decreases the chances of strokes and improves the circulation of the brain, which is massive, and again, in longevity and keeping the brain active. I always like to think as exercise as just as cognitively stimulating as, it is physically stimulating.
Absolutely. And one thing with the balance component is that there's several different ways that you can work on your balance, improve your balance. One thing I always recommend and I always tell my patients is that it's better to practice on your balance and improve your ability to recover if you do become unsteady in a safe environment so that you can translate that into your activities of daily living. So with a lot of my patients, which most of you are probably familiar with, we do a lot of single leg balance and single leg work just to prepare for those instances in which we would become unsteady.
Well said, well said. And so one thing to take this up even a notch further is you think about balance is Balance is all about stability and being stable. So to create a more challenging balancing environment, we then create what's called instability. And so we often use here in the clinic, we'll use a nice dense foam pad. I've worked a lot with, a lot of you with this and creating a more unstable environment to then promote more of those stabilizing muscles, not only in the knee, the hip, and the other joints involved in this, but also the core. And so there's many ways that we can even move past just this simple one leg stand here.
Absolutely. Okay, and the most daunting for me out of the Fit 50 benchmarks would be the mile. For me, cardio isn't my strongest suit. I would say resistance training would be. And a lot of times I will neglect cardio more than I like to admit. But the 1 mile test is a great test of your cardiovascular health, your endurance, and just a great way to challenge yourself.
Absolutely. And guys, I mean, I personally believe that the runner's high may be a myth. I've never experienced it a day in my life, but some people, like Jenny, who love running, right? They get that high. They are rare, right? But it's very, very important for cardiovascular health. We spend a lot of time, a lot of the previous Fitness 50 benchmarks are surrounding strength and heavy skeletal muscle. And that's very, very true because we know that there's an overwhelming amount of evidence in having a large amount. Those that have more muscle live longer than those that don't. But there's still no substitute for having a healthy heart and lungs, right? And so the mile run is just one of many ways that you can be involved in this. Yes, we can test you and set benchmarks, and the mile is very simple to be able to record. But don't be afraid to get involved with rowing and swimming and the elliptical and hiking. You can still get a lot of the same benefits by doing these activities and doing them consistently. It's a matter of, can you do them for a longer period of time? We have a patient that we've shared our story with many times, Tony, who we've worked on this a lot, and we got her to the top of, and the name escapes me. What was the name of the Catherine's Peak? Catherine's Peak. We got her to the top of that because she took the time to work on her cardiovascular fitness. And it wasn't even involving running, right? We did a lot of incline walking, and we slowly got her to the point where, yes, it was challenging. It was nothing that was easy. We had to push her, but it was nothing that she wasn't capable of once we got her to that point.
And a really good measurement tool here is if you can't run a mile straight, maybe test yourself. Give yourself 8 to 10 minutes of some form of cardio. Maybe it's running, jogging, walking, swimming, rowing, any of the others that Trysten talked about, and just see how far you can get within 12 minutes. Maybe it's half a mile. That's a good place to start. And then we can slowly improve your cardiovascular health and see the progress you make. If you don't reach the 12 minutes, that's okay. There's a place to start, and everyone starts somewhere, and there's ways to improve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect.
All right. So burpees. This one here, again, maybe one of, I would say, in the top 3, maybe even top 2 of the most challenging exercises on this. So this combines a lot of the movements that we've already broken down one by one, right? So we've broken down a push-up, we've broken down a squat, we've broken down a sit to stand. The burpee kind of incorporates all of these, and again, forces your mind to combine movements that it's learned in sections. These were used as a punishment when I was playing football all the time. They would do them, insane amounts of them, right? And so, but they do serve a good purpose. And the main one I like to point out is that it's great for your cardiovascular endurance and your muscular endurance / strength at the same time. This is one of those cool exercises that you kind of get the best of both worlds together. There are many variations, so you don't necessarily have to be able to do a push-up in order to do this. And you don't even really have to be able to fully jump off the ground to be able to do this. There are, again, variations within this that we can work with you, but these really get the heart rate burning at a high level. We don't do this for a prolonged period of time. We consider this what we call a high intensity interval type training, or a HIIT type exercise, because of its intensity. It's not something we do for a long period of time, but it's something that really gets the heart going very, very quickly, which is proven to, again, mitigate risks in more mortality. There's the steady state, which is more of the mile, and then there's more of this high intensity where we get the heart rate up a little bit higher and in that zone and hang out there before dropping back down. We don't hang out there very long.
Very well said. And a big thing to note with this is today I was working with Kathy. I don't know if she's on here or not, but we were working on the burpees and it was really challenging. She mentioned that her grandkids are able to just jump really high and do these burpees and bust them out. And she was like, I want to be able to do that. And then we got into it and realized that we just really needed to break the exercise down into different movement patterns to really make it flow seamlessly, because it is a flow of different exercises. So it's really important to start by breaking it down into different movement patterns to progress through it and be able to do it in a flow, in a steady state. And with this, it's 25 burpees in a row, and just essentially how fast you can do it, with the fittest being 2 minutes. So 25 burpees in 2 minutes. That seems really, really hard, and it's going to be really challenging. Like Trysten said, it is a cardiovascular exercise, high intensity. So just working and building your cardiovascular health as well as your strength through the other exercises is going to be really important for progressing through this exercise.
Absolutely. And this, the last thing I like to point out is that you see this term down here, all cause mortality, right? Essentially, that means dying for any reason, right? Pertaining to death. So being able to lower your all cause mortality through exercise and weight training, and a burpee is a great way to do this, is massive, right? We want to just mitigate and live as long as possible. So why not incorporate certain things that are able to do that for us?
Absolutely. And now we have reached all 11 of the benchmarks. So we've broke each of them down and talked about how to improve it, ways to incorporate it into your current routine. If there's any questions, feel free to shoot them out right now if we didn't address something that you'd like us to. But I do want to ask Trysten a few questions related to the Fit 50 benchmarks. So out of the 11 exercises, which would you say is your favorite exercise?
Favorite. So again, for benefits as well as challenge, I have to go with the dead hang. It's my absolute favorite, not only because of the challenge it presents, but because of the benefits, right? And so I really encourage all of you to really try this, and remember that you don't have to start with a dead hang. You don't have, I mean, there are many people that, I can't even hang from a bar. That's totally okay. I have shoulder injuries. That's totally okay. There are many other variations, like Nikki said earlier. A carry. A carry is a great way, and we'd be happy to help you with this and send you some recommendations to continue to, strengthen your grip. There are many, exercise type balls that you can squeeze to help, continue to strengthen the grip. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the dead hang or just grip strength overall. So I'd have to say that is my favorite. Nikki, what would you say your favorite is?
I didn't want to piggyback off of you and copy what you said, but I would also say the dead hang, just because for me personally, I suffered a shoulder injury in high school and it's kind of followed me, never really improved, but hasn't gotten worse. And so the dead hang is just a great way to build stability within my shoulder. Yes, there's other exercises that I can do to build stability in that joint, but this is just the best way for me personally, is to engage in dead hangs.
Awesome. Awesome.
And then one thing I do want to note with the Fit 50 testing, just as a whole, you don't necessarily need to test all 11 exercises in a row. You can break it down and do one exercise a day, or just incorporate it and test it how you can. But it is important to test on all of the different benchmarks, but break it up in whatever way works for you. I know for me, looking at this and thinking, oh, I have to test on these 11 different exercises, gives me some PTSD and reminds me of elementary school doing PE, like physical fitness testing, and just kind of scares me and can be a little intimidating, which I'm sure it is that way for most people. So feel free to break it up, do an exercise a day, pick maybe altering exercises, one that works upper body, one that works lower body, and approach it that way. I know with one of my patients, we set out and broke down a full calendar week on which exercises they were going to test each day, just to give us some baseline measures and not make it feel so intimidating and such a daunting task.
Absolutely. That's it. I couldn't have said it better myself, and a great way to really tie things up here. We have a great t-shirt system too. We have t-shirts to reward you guys for hitting every single level. We have a fit, we have a fitter, we have a fittest. Let us know if you want to come in and test, or if you're testing at home, let us know. We'd be happy to send you one of these shirts. We want to, give you a reward, recognize what you're able to do here. So we have a great t-shirt system in place. Again, if there's any questions, we're happy to answer them. If not, our challenge to you is just going into this next week here until our next hack here would be to pick one of these exercises, even if it's the deadlift, even if it's the single leg, balancing exercise. Pick one and see where you are and see where you compare to these benchmarks that we've kind of set out before you, and just see where you're starting. We can't make progress if we don't know where we're starting. So our challenge to you is pick one of these, see where you're at, and then build upon that. And again, reach out to Nikki, reach out to myself. We're happy to help you go over these and even develop a plan to be able to get you into every single level.
And if you're interested in either the infographics that we shared or just the Fit 50 benchmark document in itself, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to provide you with it and help you along your journey. And do please reach out to us and tell us how you're doing on these benchmarks. I personally love to hear progress and hear how you guys are doing. So if you just want to share how you're doing on these, or maybe you tested one of them, say you tested tonight, reach out, let us know. We want to celebrate you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, if there's no questions, we've had an absolute blast being on here with you guys, educating you guys. We plan to be on here more in the future. If there's some topic that may be pertaining to fitness that you want to see a hack covered, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to pass that on to Kate, and we'd get on here and just educate you guys and provide you with as much information as possible.
Absolutely. And if you are interested in a lot of this, we are posting it on our social media. So be sure to follow us on the social media pages just so that you can see the things we post. We do a lot of physical activity education on there.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a great night. Again, it's been a blast here with you guys, and we will see you next week.
See you guys. Thank you.